All right, episode 4, Sound of Music.
It's about freaking time, man.
King, about freaking time. King Crimson. How you doing, Rob?
I'm doing well. I apologize to everybody in advance if you hear like a mild amount of squeaking or like rustling in the back. We just got a new cat, so there might be a tiny bit of that bleeding in.
Yeah, new cat. And if, for those of you that have been listening in the first 3 episodes, you might hear the occasional birds in the background on my end of things, as well as a dog. So, animals all around, but it's all good. We're not professionals, so it's okay.
And hey, I actually whenever I edit this stuff back, I always enjoy hearing the bird sounds. But anyway.
So we apologize, as Rob
Mm-hmm.
just said, that it really has been a while since we've posted an episode, and we did want to briefly talk about why that
Mm-hmm.
is. Rob, you have been in the midst of a move,
Move, new
which I
job,
know,
and yeah, move, new job, new cat. It's been a crazy like last month or so.
yeah, and all of that's a process in of
Mm-hmm.
itself. I know the move especially was a little crazy there for a while, but you're settled now. You're
Yep.
settled at the new job, new house. You just got a cat, and yeah, sound like things are pretty good now.
Yep. And how about you? What about you, Andy? What have you been up to since the last episode?
Oh, Andy. Well, since you asked, I've been back to work. I think we've mentioned a couple times on the show that I'm a
Hmm.
teacher. I'm a third grade teacher specifically, and that has taken up a lot of my time. In addition to that, I guess you could say I sort of got promoted as well too. So I'm the grade level chair of my grade level. I'm also what's called the intermediate chair, which basically means I oversee third, fourth, and fifth grade.
Whoa.
And yeah. So, and a couple other add-ons to my job title as well too that I'm not gonna bore anyone and get into. But now I wear about 6 different hats.
Well,
So,
congratulations. And this is one of them. We're back. We're back, guys. The Sound of Music
yes,
podcast is back. And should we talk about what this series is going to be going forward? I don't know if you want to get into that.
yeah. So during our month and a half hiatus, if you will, we have been talking behind the scenes as to where we want to approach the podcast moving forward. Getting feedback from some listeners, which has been fantastic, by the way, some of the feedback we've been receiving. And one of the things that we had heard back from people was just how long the show is, which that's something that after every time you and I are done recording, that's like the first thing that we talk about, like, oh my God, I can't believe that was 2 hours. Oh my God, that was 2.5 hours. So we, after this episode, we're going to do one more episode, which is going to be the wrap up episode where we do our top 20 favorite King Crimson tracks, as well as we do our album rankings. And there's going to be some other things that we're going to do in that
Yeah, some
episode that we'll
final
talk about,
thoughts, and we,
some final
yeah,
thoughts, reflections that we'll dive into more um, when we get to that episode. But we did decide the next band that we are going to cover in the discography
mm-hmm,
series, which we're not announcing yet. We did decide to go ahead and just do one album in episode.
yeah,
And a couple reasons why we decided to make that shift. Mainly one for you guys as listeners. It's easier to digest.
yeah. It's
you
way
know,
way easier to tune in to say we're going to try to make it. What do you think? Somewhere between, on the long side of it, an hour; on the short side, a half hour. Maybe somewhere in the middle, it'll be more like a 45-minute thing.
we're hoping, yeah, anywhere between 30 to 45
Yeah.
minutes max per episode, which is a lot more doable because, of course, we're talking about one album as opposed to three.
Mm-hmm.
And we do realize that as a result, especially with this next band that we're going to tackle, that this could take a long time. But one of the other things we discussed as well is that we're going to start doing a every other week schedule. So
Yes.
every 2 weeks, hopefully, emphasis on hopefully, we'll post a new episode. So at least with doing 2 episodes a month, that's 2 albums, of course, that we can cover. And also, really, because it's more digestible for us too, not
Yeah.
just for you guys, but for us. I mean, I know one of the things for me personally, doing this King Crimson series, which has been a
Oh,
blast.
it's been
Really
amazing.
has. But part of the reason why it took us so long to even just record this episode, not even just because of how crazy our lives have been, but also because I just needed a break from King Crimson.
And also, if I may add too, when we have the time between the episodes, as we've stated, we do research and we do listen to all the albums at least once. I don't know about you. I think each of us have listened to every album at least twice, if not three times, minimum. And it's just easier. Like if you have 2 weeks between episodes and you're only doing one album, I could listen to it 4, 5, 6 times, and really get a feel for the
Right.
album versus trying to cram 3 or even the first episode we did 4 albums and within a couple-week period. Now that seems like not a lot, but when you have a lot of other stuff going on, and Andrew and I are both huge music fans in general, so I like to listen to other stuff, and you almost feel like, I don't know about you, I was like, if I listen to something else, I almost feel like I'm feel guilty, like I'm not doing my homework, almost, and I don't like that feeling. I'd rather just listen to the album because I want to. So
That's just it. And
yeah.
we do this at the end of the day. We do this for fun, guys. Like we're not getting paid. We're not monetized or anything like that. We really do this for fun.
Yep.
And I do think that it, at least for me, speaking for myself, it was starting to feel like homework. And once it starts to feel like that, then this is just no longer fun. So we're hoping that being able to break it, by one album an episode, um, it gives us more listening opportunities, but also being able to listen to other things while preparing for each record that we're going to talk
Yeah,
about.
and
Because, like I said, I know that for me, that was also, I didn't mean to cut you off. That was also part of the reason why I just needed a break. I just needed to listen to other things that weren't King Crimson.
yeah, and unless you had anything else to say, just to kind of wrap this up so we can proceed. The only, and we didn't really even talk about this off air, but this kind of just came to me. If we do, if we change this now to every 2 weeks, where we do one album and it takes us half hour, 45 minutes, we'll probably have to set aside about an hour of time, right? So that's really a lot easier to carve out than say 2-3 hours. But not just that, it gives us a little more room to do the other things we wanted to do as well. So if we're feeling froggy and we have a little extra time, it's like, hey, now we can do this other idea that we had, or maybe we want to do this one-off video, or we want to do some other project. So that opens us up
Absolutely.
creatively.
And we do have other things that are in the works as well, too. And like you said, Rob, that kind of gives us now more the opportunity to
Yep.
I'll do those things as well too. But so that's going to be, the new format, guys, as well as the 2 week schedule. So what that means is we're shooting for 2 weeks for the King Crimson discography series finale, and then I guess we're looking at a month from now for episode 1, season 2.
Hopefully by the
of,
end of October we could have King Crimson wrapped up and at least maybe the first album under our belt for the next band. That would be, I think, a good goal to make.
All right. So that's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're done, do you want to start out with where we left off with our
Yes,
our little project here?
So again, because it has been a while, for those of you that do remember and you did listen to the last episode, kind of out of nowhere, we had the idea as we were wrapping up Three of a Perfect Pair to come up with our own alternate version of using songs from Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair, which the name we came up with was A Perfect Beat. The idea of this was to really take our favorite tracks, excuse me, off both those records and I guess sort of make our own what if album instead. Now I know, and I'm going to get into it in a second, I know when I was putting my track listing together, I really had the mindset of like this alternative, reality, whatever you want to call it, that this was the follow-up record to Discipline. How did you approach this, Rob?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah, because I mean, and no offense to you guys who like Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair, I actually think I like them more than I initially did. But we discussed in the without rehashing the whole thing, but we discussed in the last episode how we felt between the two albums, there was a really solid album, of the best of tracks from those two records. So for me, it's definitely like, what is the big follow-up to Discipline? Because Discipline was a really great album, and I think Discipline was a really important album for the band. It really launched them back into, you know, relevancy and just existing at all, since the band had been pretty much disbanded since 1974. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, again, no disrespect to those two records because they are pretty good albums.
mhm,
And I would agree. I think since both of them have maybe grown on me a little more.
mhm,
But I know for me, and I do this with a lot of my favorite bands, this is just a fun, what if, uh, type of thing.
mhm.
And that's really all it's meant to be. It's just for fun. My dream version of how I guess I wish this era panned out. But again, it's for fun. It's you may like it, you may not like it.
Mhm.
Either way, that's completely okay. But let's do this, Rob. Let's maybe, if you want to share yours first, and maybe give a little bit of a backstory of how you approached it, and
Mhm.
then I will share mine after. Let's do that.
Okay, well, I didn't have much of a backstory, and I know I'll keep mine a little short and sweet, so I can give you the floor because you seem pretty excited about it. So, I just simply picked the what I basically pulled together my favorite songs from each album, and I kind of just thought, well, what way would I want to sequence this? So I just had them all in just a random kind of playlist, and then I just listened to them, and I kind of just basically, I mean, it's pretty simple. I pretty much just kind of shifted the tracks the way I thought that they would go, and I'll just go through the album or the tracks track by track, so you guys can I can kind of tell you what my headspace was when I did it. Now, I will say I want to preface this before we both get into our list by saying that if you are listening to this on YouTube, if you check in the description below, there is going to be 2 links to Spotify playlists, and you can listen to both mine and Andy's The Perfect Beat playlist. So whichever one you like, or if you want to hear both of them, just check in the description below, click it. If you have Spotify, it should just open it right up and you'll be able to listen to it. So, that being said, the first track that I picked was Three of a Perfect Pair, which I thought was the perfect opener. It was my favorite opener of the 2 albums. And I don't know, I just thought it was a good album to open it with. And what I did with this album, which to me is a bit of a complaint I have sometimes with the sequencing of King Crimson albums, and particularly I had this complaint with Discipline, is that they tend to put like stack instrumentals together, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that the albums would flow better sometimes if they were to do more of a format of like, shorter kind of song with vocals, instrumental, then again, shorter vocals, instrumental.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Discipline falls under that trap, and so does Starless and Bible Black.
Yeah, so what I ended up doing was I pretty much did it in that manner. So I went with Three of a Perfect Pair from the title track from that album. Then I went Satori and Tangier from Beat, which is probably it's
Ooh.
tied for my first favorite instrumental from that album, and one of my favorite instrumentals from that entire period. I just think it flows well into it. Then I went with Waiting Man, and I think with Beat, those tracks are pretty close together. I don't have it in front of me, but I think those 2 tracks are pretty close. I'm just looking real quick.
They're both on side one. I forget how
Yeah,
close they are too. I just know they're both on side one.
I thought that they just flowed. Like I thought that the songs again. I don't know. I didn't have a particular mindset with it. I just thought the album or the songs flowed together well.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just Waiting Man's probably my favorite track off the album that has vocals. And it's got kind of like a YouTube vibe. YouTube vibe. So I thought that was kind of cool to put it after that. And then I went with Absent Lovers because Jesus, oh my god. Waiting Man has kind of a little bit of a pop vibe to it, and I thought since Absent Lovers is an instrumental, but it's kind of got like a danceable beat sort of sound to it, that it would go well after it. So I went with that. I really liked that. Then I went with Sleepless from Three of a Perfect Pair. Again, just kind of clustered. Sleepless is kind of the best of the more quote-unquote accessible tracks from Three of a Perfect Pair as far as I'm concerned, so I thought that would go well into it. Then I went with Neurotica. Neurotica is interesting because, again, it's a more of the accessible side of King Crimson, especially on beat. But there's kind of a weird vibe from that song that you get. There's kind of like a crazed, kind of strange, feel to it, which I think leads well into what basically will be the last three tracks on this, which are all from Three of a Perfect Pair, and they're from that kind of darker industrial side of the album. So I went with Nuages as an instrumental because it's probably my favorite instrumental on the album. Then to Dig Me, and then to Industry. I closed the whole track or the whole album with Industry because I think
Nice.
closing on kind of like a dark ambient piece like that is a cool way to end the album.
I love that transition, dig me into an industry, and you're kind of sticking with the original side too of Three of a Perfect Pair in that aspect.
I liked the idea of that. Like it was a cool idea in it to have, but I just felt like the sequencing made it a bit of a chore to listen to by the end of the album because it's mostly instrumentals and it's kind of dark ambient stuff, which is fine. But if you don't break that up a little bit, it can kind of drone on. So I think breaking it up with Dig Me there was a good way to do it. And I also purposely picked the track Nuages because it's relatively short. It's less than 5 minutes long. And then Industry is 7 minutes, but after that, it's just over. So I think you have a lot of you have a lot of room to kind of get a break from some of that long noodly stuff, which I love, but too much of anything isn't good, right?
Totally. And what's cool, guys, listening to Rob's Perfect Beat track listing is just like when we prep for the show in general, behind the scenes, we don't really share our opinions on the albums that we're covering because we want to kind
Mm-hmm.
of, um, keep that live feeling of,
Yeah.
being surprised by our, what we agree with, what we disagree with. So it was really interesting to hear what you chose to put on yours. And I didn't exactly do a count, but about half of the songs you picked are not on mine. So it's really
Wow.
cool to hear, how you approached it versus how I'm about to explain how I approached it. Um,
Well, I'm interested to hear your. I think what I'll probably do, and I assume you'll do it too, is at some point after this, I'll end up listening to your.
so I was just about to say that. So we'll do that. We'll have to
Yeah.
for sure listen to each other's.
Uh-huh.
But is that it? Can I start mine?
Yeah, go for it. I that way we can just get through it. So
Okay, I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. You know me, of the two of us, I'm definitely the one that baffles on, probably a
no
little
worry, I'm like
more.
that too.
So I just want to give a little bit of background of how I approached mine. I kind of had like this like alternate, reality where, this is like how the band followed up Discipline. So the
Hmm.
Discipline tour was successful, and when the band was getting back into the studio, reconvening, getting ready to record what would be the follow up to Discipline, I sort of approached it similarly to how Three of a Perfect Pair was approached in the sense that Blue wanted to do more of like the pop, more accessible, reach
Hmm.
out a wider audience, whereas Fripp wanted to kind of, go back and do some of like the more darker, sinister, experimental stuff. So some of that is kind of incorporated um, on my Perfect Beat track listing. So it's 1982, and again, Adrian Belew is like, Discipline was a new sound. We reached a new wider audience, and I want to be able to expand on that. And there's new waves becoming really big. Um, so we need to
Hmm.
reach a wider audience, not sell out, but reach to a wider audience. Fripp isn't exactly opposed to the idea, but he's also a little reluctant at the same time. So unlike what ended up, I guess, happening with Three of a Perfect Pair, the two um, came to more of an agreement on my A
Hmm.
Perfect Beat album. So my side one, for the most part, is I guess you could say, the single side, the more
Hmm.
accessible side, with the exception of one track, and I'll talk about why I placed it there. And then my side two is the more experimental side, but still up until this point in the band's career, um, more accessible compared to some of their more experimental stuff.
Okay.
So my first track, side one, also opens with Three of a Perfect Pair. Um,
It's a
and
great
then my
opener. I'm kind of not surprised to hear it, to be
yeah,
honest.
no, it totally is. And I realized too as I was putting this together, especially with like the beat songs, like beat kind of has um, a theme, and that's of course the beat generation. So being
Hmm.
that I kept some beat songs, thematically this album might not entirely work out the way I have it, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I was just listening to it before we started recording today, and it definitely each track segues very well to the next. So I'm very proud in
Cool.
that aspect how it came out. So Three of a Perfect Pair is my opening track, and in my alternate history universe, whatever you want to call it, is the band's first single, and it does very well as a first single. So we open with Three of a Perfect Pair, and then we go into Neil and Jack and Me, which ironically is the
That's
opening
wow.
track off Beat.
Hmm.
Um, Neil and Jack and Me, although it's my second track in my world, it's the third single off this record.
Hmm.
This album does very well in this alternate universe that I've established. So Neil and Jack and Me is track two. Then, then we go into Neurotica. And the
Hmm.
reason why I picked Neurotica as the third track, but also on my side one, is because this, for my album, is the fan favorite. It's placed here because this is just reassuring those hardcore KC fans, like, hey guys, we're not leaving you, under the dust. Like, this is still your music. Like you
Yeah.
are our fans at the core. Like, yes, we're trying to expand our audience, but we're not forgetting about you as well. Plus, not to mention, I just think Neil and Jack and Me, the end of that song just flows really well into the opening of Neurotica. So I like that placement too. So
Cool.
Neurotica is my third track. And then my side one closes with Model Man,
Wow.
which I've
Interesting.
expressed how much in the last episode, how much I love, love, love this song. And on mine, this is the second single that King Crimson releases to promote this record. And
Hmm.
out of the three singles, Model Man is the one that does the best.
Hmm.
Why? Because I said so. So that is so Model Man closes my side one, and then we go into side two, and side two is the more experimental side. Um, Once this album's been out for a couple of years, fans are hesitant at first, but overall, it's received well in the King Crimson community, and side two ends up being the fan favorite side. Side one, the three singles continue to do very well, but it's side two
Hmm.
that's the one that fans talk about. So the hardcore fans that is. So track five, which is my opening track for side two, is Sleepless.
Yes.
Then we go into track six, which is Waiting Man.
Hmm.
After Waiting Man, we go into track seven, which is Dig Me. And then we
Ooh.
close. My closing track is the extended version of Requiem that was released with the 50th anniversary singles.
That is a very interesting list. That ending track makes you go, "Oh, don't worry, we're still King Crimson."
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we're still the same
Absolutely.
band.
Like it ends
Yeah.
like just like my process with putting erotica where I placed it. I wanted to close with a track that was still very like experimental King Crimson.
Hmm.
So that's how I approach the record. Again, with the mindset of yeah, we want to widen our audience, but we want to stay true to the fan base.
I really like you. You put a lot more thought into it than I did, so I appreciate that.
I,
It's nice that you kind of have a theme with yours,
Dude,
and you
I do
go
this
ahead.
stuff all the time with some of my favorite bands. There's actually two more King Crimson albums. I think I might wait till the end of the episode because one of the albums is one of the ones we're going to talk about today. Where I think I'm going to try doing a alternate sequencing of my own. But guys, as Rob said, these are our perfect beat track listings. When the episode is posted, we're going to have a Spotify playlist of Rob's as well as
Yep,
mine. And let us
check the
know what you
description.
think of them.
Yeah, and if not, and we'd also love to hear like what you would put as the perfect beat if give us a sequence of, or I mean, hell, maybe you want to put every track from both albums and just reorder them, or just reorder the albums as they are. I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to
Now you're
say.
gonna make the
So
Ultimate King Crimson
comment.
double album.
Also, before we move on, I just, because you had me thinking here with mine, I didn't have what I imagined was side A and what I imagined was side B, and I think side A would go Three of a Perfect Pair, Satori and Tangier, Waiting Man, Absent Lovers, and then Sleepless. And then the other side B, would be kind of the more eccentric stuff, which would be Neurotica, Nuages, Dig Me, and Industry. I think that would be the way to do it. And I also should mention that I one of the reasons I wanted Absent Lovers in there is because it's not on the original album, and I wanted it on there. Much as I'm sure why you put Requiem there, the extended version, because that's not the original one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those two tracks certainly deserve, from what I've heard of the other version of Requiem too, kind of deserve to be on the actual album.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
All right, man. But let's move on to really what today's episode is all about. So we are in, I guess, what we can call Phase 4 of King Crimson, and we enter the
Mm-hmm.
90s era. So today we're going to talk about the band's last three records, which are 1995's THRAK, that was louder than I
Mm-hmm.
needed to be, 2000's The Construction of Light, and 2003's The Power to Believe. So why don't we do
I'm
this,
excited.
Rob? I'm gonna give us. We're gonna start with THRAK, of course. I'm gonna give us an overview of THRAK, and then if you want to share the band members, and then we can get started.
Okay, sounds good. Let's get right into it.
All right. So THRAK is the 11th studio album by King Crimson, released in 1995. It was the successor to the mini album Vroom. So just a little side note with that. So the band got back together. I don't have my exact dates, but early 90s, like 93, 94. And they were touring before they put together THRAK. And Vroom consists of some of the songs that would end up being on THRAK. Um, One thing that THRAK is very well known for is it's the lineup that is called the double trio lineup, which basically what that is double trio. You have two of every instrument, so two guitar players, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll get into the band members in a second. The two guitar players, two bassists, and two drummers as well. Uh, when this was an interesting quote that I read in Uncut magazine when explaining what THRAK means. One of Fripp's many quotes was, "THRAK means 117 guitars almost hitting the same chord simultaneously."
That is so something he would
Yeah,
say.
right. THRAK reached number 58 on the UK charts. This would actually be the last album of theirs to reach the charts at all.
Did it chart in America? I think it did. I think.
I didn't see any information about any US charts for any of these albums.
You keep going, and I'm just gonna look it
All
up
right, yeah, go
while
ahead.
you're going over it.
Um, I believe in the. I want to emphasize I believe. So please, if anyone can correct us, that would be great. But I do believe we are listening to the original version, not the 2015 remix that was done by Jacko Jax. Could be wrong though.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing was what followed this album was the live improv album THRAK Attack, which I'll be honest with you, I've not had the chance to listen to yet. Um, but that is highly regarded amongst King Crimson fans. It's the THRAK Attack live improv album, which takes some of the tracks off THRAK, and it's just full improv.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that on. Oh no, I guess it isn't on the Spotify version here. By the way, Thrak did chart in the U.S. It hit number 83.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And in fact, it did not chart anywhere else except for the U.S. and the U.K. From as far as according to Wikipedia, anyway. So, 83 in the U.S., 58 in the U.K.
All right. So band members.
And for the band members, the lineup is so. This is actually this. It's basically the same lineup from the previous era plus two. So we have Robert Fripp, also known as Mr. Frippo Pants, on guitar, Mellotron, soundscapes, vocals, and production. We have Adrian Ballou on guitar, lead vocals, and production. We have Tony Levin on bass, extended range bass, electric upright bass, funk fingers, backing vocals, production, and just straight up awesomeness because Tony Levin is a god. Bill Bruford on drums and production. And then the two newcomers, we have Trey Gunn on the Chapman stick, the war guitar, backing vocals, and production. And we have Pat Mastelletto on percussion and production as well. They all have production credits here. Pat Mastelletto, who, by the way, is in the current lineup of King Crimson and has been in King Crimson since this period, actually. So this was his first introduction.
He didn't take a break from the band? He's consistently been with the band since THRAK?
As far as I know, I'm not sure as far as the studio albums go, but he's been on all three of these studio albums, and he's currently in the band. I don't know how much he's been in and out of the band between Power to Believe and the current day, but yeah, as far as I know, because I think wasn't Gavin Harrison with him for a while?
Oh, you know what I think it was?
Too?
I think before they broke up in the late 2000s, Gavin Harrison joined, but Pat Mastelletto was still in the band. So I think you're right. I think he's been consistently with the band since THRAK.
Yeah, any of you crazy King Crimson fans who know this, just correct
please
us
correct
here.
us. But I think you're right. But anyways, okay, so let's dive into the track listing. I do want to note that this is going to be the first album where we also don't have the vinyl format where we have side one, side two, maybe the vinyl re-releases if they even exist. Of course, they're vinyl, they're broken down into different sides, but the 90s, this was like the peak. Vinyl wasn't even a thing. So we just have our 15 tracks. So let's dive into track one, which is Vroom. And right off the bat, you listen to this song and you're like, all right, so this is familiar, but not in a bad way. This is familiar KC. This is like the Wet and Bruford. I just blanked out on Fripp's name. Wow. The Wet and Bruford Fripp era, the Red era, of course. This song almost sounds like it could be the cousin to Red. I love this track. I think this is such a killer opener.
It's a great opener. It's essentially King Crimson's way of saying we're back, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's just it's that dark, riff heavy, almost metal kind of sound, except it's kind of, you could definitely, I actually think if we could talk about the album cover for just a second, the album cover, it's looks like I still can't really quite figure out what it is. It's like a sheet of metal. It kind of has like this industrial look. That's the sound you can expect in this album.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
At a time when industrial metal was pretty much hitting mainstream popularity, you had bands like Tool and I don't know, name more industrial bands.
Tool, Nine Inch Nails, Ministry.
Yeah, Nine Inch Nails, thank you. Like that, those kind of bands coming out, and so you can very much tell, especially with this track, it's got a lot of the old, but there's also this new vibe as well.
Oh, absolutely, and I should clarify that too when I say like, yeah, it's the cousin to Red. This song still very much sounds like of the period it was released, the time period. This is without a doubt KC meets the 90s. This is not something you would have heard in 1974. So definitely more contemporary of its time, and it absolutely draws influences as well as the two subsequent albums from a lot of those big industrial bands. But I love this track. I think this is a great opener.
Yeah, it's an awesome opener. I again, like you saying cousin to Red, yeah, it's a classic. It reminds me of, how King Crimson would open. I'm trying to think. Yeah, like how they would open some of their albums in the 70s, that period, especially with a track like Red, or even it's kind of, or even like some of the Larks without the quieter bits.
Yeah. So let's move on to track two, Coda Marine 475. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this song. It's just a quick little interlude. I'm going to have some beef with a lot of the interludes on these three records that we're talking about today. But this one's pretty cool. I like it. I don't want to say it's a nice break when we just got off of one track, but it's definitely kind of a nice break to what leads into track three, which track three is one of my favorite tracks off this album. Dinosaur.
Dinosaur,
Let's talk
yeah.
about that.
It's this is a contender for me too. So I think something else should be stated. So obviously the sound here, giving what we said, and I'm sorry I'm just talking about the sound and not talking about the track, but I'll make it quick and get right into it. Um, there's definitely a different sound in this period than the last period. A lot of the pop sensibilities are gone, although they're not completely gone. They're just not prevalent, I guess is what you'd say. And what's interesting about Dinosaur is it's really our first look at what a heavier kind of classic sounding King Crimson sounds like with Adrian Belew. And I like that because I think his vocal style actually fits with it pretty well. And you really get to hear like Adrian Belew stretch out vocally in this track, and I really
It
like
makes me
it.
wish now that,
His
the current incarnation of King Crimson pretty much covers the whole catalog. It makes me wish that we got to hear Adrian Belew sing some more of those, Court from Red era tunes, because like
Yep.
this really is like the Red sound, but with the discipline lineup.
Yeah, with and with some of the, and when I say like the pop is gone, it's not gone because a lot of melodies and a lot of the ways that Belew writes lyrics and writes melodies from that era shines through this, but it's with that heavier,
Yeah,
darker
absolutely.
sound.
And
So that's what I like about it. It's a
yeah,
marriage of it, you
absolutely.
know.
But as far as Dinosaur goes, this is just a killer track. I think you can interpret the lyrics, what they mean, a couple different ways. When I listen to it, I kind
Mm-hmm.
of lean more towards that the song is about, like we're a dinosaur rock band, we're a dad rock band, um, but we're
Yep.
proving that that's not the case, that um, we can kick ass just as much as our current contemporaries do. And this song showcases that, in my opinion.
My interpretation is a little different, actually. I've interpreted it with certain lyrics, like there's one line where it's like, "Ignorance has always been something I excel in." I stuff like that. I think of it as somebody who is older and is set in their ways and is just. It almost sounds like the song is about somebody who is older, reflecting on their life and realizing how having a kind of closed mind has kind of not been good for them in the
Yeah,
past. You know what I'm saying? There's just certain lines that make me
and I
think of
think,
that. You know.
also because I have the lyrics pulled up, um, and
Mm-hmm.
going off of your interpretation, I think you could absolutely interpret it that way. I mean, the opening line, long ago and far away in a different age, when I was a dumb young guy, that
Yep.
absolutely
Yep.
goes along with what you just said. So I think this song can
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, and that's what makes a great song, is that it can be open to interpretation. Um, but I think both of us have solid interpretations of the track. Like I said,
Yeah, and I just love the little nods to like actual dinosaurs. Like,
which is what I
it's
didn't
it's
like
pretty
about the
great.
song at first. I will say, my first listen, I wasn't, because I remember liking this song back in the day, but THRAK was an
Uh
album that I hadn't listened to in a long time. So for these three,
huh.
I've listened to all of them four times. And my first
Mm-hmm.
listen of Dinosaurs, like, I don't know if I really care for the song anymore. But my second listen, it grew on me, and I got beyond
Mm-hmm.
the actual dinosaur. you know,
I happen to be a humongous fan of dinosaurs in general, and they were my first love as a kid, so I just
well,
love
there
it.
you go.
That's all I
But
have to
it is a standout
say.
track. It's definitely one of the best off this record. But
Yeah.
track four, I almost said side four. Track four is actually probably my favorite off the album, and that is Walking
Walking on
on
Air.
Air. Um, we talked about Adrian Belew a little bit, or you did before. Um, but this song, along with another song that we'll get to, um, I love all things Adrian Belew. I loved the more
Mm-hmm.
paranoia post-punk vocals that were on the Discipline trilogy,
Mm-hmm.
Talking Heads, with King Crimson. I love that. But I love that we're
Mm-hmm.
hearing a more soulful side to his vocals. And this just
Yes, I
reminds me
like
why
that too.
he is my favorite KC vocalist. This song also kind of reminds me, here I go with the pronunciation, kind of reminds me of that Matakadus, thank you,
Mate
Mate
Kudasai.
Kudasai. I knew I wasn't going to get it. I tried. I even looked it up before we recorded to make sure I didn't make an ass of myself, and I still did, damn it. Oh well. But it reminds me of that track too. I love the guitar solo in the
Uh,
track. Like I said, Adrian's vocals are just out of this world.
it's also a nice little break from the heavier because you really, oh, I mean, aside from Coda Marine, it's like a couple seconds of like a bit of an ambient piece, but the first two tracks are pretty heavy, so it's nice to hear some light, for lack of a better term, ballady kind of tune, and his vocals are
Oh, they
fantastic in
really
this.
are. So let's move on to track five, Be Boom. Be Boom. This is another song I really like. You've been
Ba
warned. There's going
boom.
to be a lot of Tool comparisons throughout this episode,
Hmm.
and this song's no exception to that. Which actually, I guess this one kind of predates Tool in some aspects because the drumming, Pat's drumming on this one. I don't know if it's Pat or Bill. I'm not sure. Um,
I think
you're,
it's both.
you're
I think
probably
it's
is
both
both. You're
Bill and
right.
Pat.
Very tribal sounding, which reminds me of like
Hmm.
Lateralis, 10,000 Days, even the new Tool record too. Um,
Yeah. I think this is a good track that kind of just showcases the power of the two drummers because they're both incredible
mhm.
drummers. Um, and yeah, it's like you pretty much hit the nail on the head with tribal. I was listening to this morning, and I'm, and just some of the stuff they do on the drums is
Yeah,
crazy. It's a
cool.
really
It's a
cool
cool
track.
track.
And it doesn't overstay its welcome either.
Yes.
They could have easily, because it's King Crimson. This could have been like for some reason 8 minutes long, and it's
And
very
I've been pretty
digestible.
vocal about that. There are some King Crimson instrumentals
Hmm.
specifically that do, quite frankly, overstay their welcome. This one, I think, the track length is perfect, and it goes really well into track six, which is another one of my favorites, "THRAK," the title track.
Yes,
Holy fuck! This song, up to this point, probably the heaviest King Crimson song.
I think you're probably right. It's somehow a heavier,
Yeah,
darker red, like even more so than Vroom was. It's just it thunders. It's like it literally is like, I mean, the song Dinosaur. It would be like some. It reminds me of, like, I don't know, Godzilla stomping through, like, boom 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 boom. It's just very heavy. It's crazy.
yeah, totally. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to it. I just think it's a fun instrumental. It's another one like B Boom in the, in the sense that it doesn't overstay its welcome. I think it's like 6 minutes and
Hmm.
change, something like that. So it's a good length for an instrumental, especially a KC instrumental.
One of the one of the things that King Crimson does best is tracks like Red and Vroom and Thrak, and there's another one on here on an album we're going to talk about today that I can think of too, as well as a couple of others. I like when they do like the 4 to say 5 6 minute instrumental. That's the dark, thunderous, like very riff heavy instrumental, and Thrak is one of the best ones, unquestionably. There's just, and it arguably of all the ones I've heard, the heaviest and the darkest one, and really shows the prowess and the sheer power of the band, especially with, like you said, this is the double trio lineup, so you have that double bass, the double
This
drums,
is
and
where we really start to hear that
awesome.
the double trio concept was
Hmm.
successful because, like, on
Yeah.
paper, it sounds like a great idea, but I would, and I don't know. I'm not, I I remember when we started getting ready to listen to this era and remembering that, oh yeah, that's right, the double trio thing, and I was worried that was not going to
Hmm.
sound very good to me. But this track really displays that not only was it a good idea on paper, but it was successful. It really does work,
Yes.
and you hear everybody's parts,
Yeah.
which
It's
you know Right. I don't really know what else to add to it. It's just a really cool instrument.
Yeah, and it's great to both blast in your car speakers or listen to on your headphones because it's you can hear
Yeah,
so much of the
absolutely.
track.
So now, so the first six tracks, all fantastic. Even Coda Marine
Hmm.
475, even though that's just an interlude, it still sounds pretty cool. This is where we get to the point where now there are bits that are either boring to me or just
Hmm.
I don't know. There's still some good stuff coming up, but this is where the album starts to kind of fall apart. I don't want to say fall apart. That's dramatic, but after
It
yeah,
slumps a
after
little
we're
for
just
you.
getting off of six solid tracks, um, this is where I got to a point where I realized this is an album I want to approach my own sequencing to as well. So I hinted at that before when we talked about our perfect beat track listings. This is an
Hmm.
album, and I don't think it's going to be something that I cover on the last episode. Maybe we can do our own thing down the road, or I can do my own thing. But this is an album, along with Starless and Bible Black. I've decided I want to try to put together my own track listing too. Um,
Hmm.
but the next track, sorry to get off there, is
No worries.
Intergarden 1. And this is a pretty track. I mean, it's short, um, but it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't really serve a purpose. It just sounds incomplete to me, which I'm sure was intentional. Um, we'll talk about it at the end, but I actually like the 50th anniversary version of Intergarden more, which, like I said, we'll talk about
Hmm.
in a bit. But what are your thoughts on this one?
I think also just because they go together, I'm going to talk about Inner Garden 1 and 2. I actually really like both. I really like his vocals and I love the lyrics. It wasn't until I listened to it this morning that I was really listening to the lyrics and I was like, wow, this is actually like very pastoral
Yeah,
kind of
his vocals are
lyrics and
great, and it's a
paints a pretty picture. Like, I'm actually very impressed with the
it's
lyrics of this
lyrically it's
song.
great. His vocals are great, and I agree, it's a pretty track.
Yeah.
That's why I recommend checking out the complete version, which was released as a 50th anniversary single, because it's the two tracks combined. It's a little more stripped back, but I almost wish that they originally went with
Hmm.
that version. Sequencing wise, I'm not too sure where you would
Hmm.
place it. It might sound like it's a little out of place. But that's been the version I've been
Hmm.
listening to is the complete version because you're right. There is a great song there. Um, just I don't know, separating the two parts, and they're pretty spread out on the album too. I just don't understand why they
Now I was
went with that, but that's just me.
I was a bad boy, and I for every other one, every other podcast we've done, I've listened to all of the 50th anniversary singles, and I just blanked and didn't do it on these three albums. So oopsie, I'm gonna have to listen to the that though now
Oopsies.
because I actually really enjoyed both tracks. So to hear a more complete version
Yeah, I would definitely
would be
check it
pretty
out.
fun.
So that brings us to track 8, which is People. This is one.
I
Do
really
you?
like this
This is
one.
one I've been kind of back and forth with.
If you don't mind me cutting in, this one didn't stand out to me at first, but again this morning I was listening to it, and I think what I like
You
about
keep
this is
cutting out,
it's
by
a
the
bit of
way.
a
I didn't mean
throwback
to
to.
interrupt you. That's okay.
Oh, am I? I'm sorry. It's. I think I should be recording. Okay, so that's all that matters. But anyway, so with people, I really feel like it's a throwback to the previous era of King Crimson. It's kind of got the
Mm.
'80s sort of vibe to it. I like the melody. The lyrics are a little silly. They have that kind of eccentric blue vibe, but I
Mm-hmm.
actually do like them, and I like his vocals on it too. I don't know. It's kind of a fun track. It's pretty upbeat, and it again
I
breaks up
think
the
because you
album pretty
mentioned
good.
that, it kind of goes back to the eccentric, nature of, a lot
Mhm.
of his vocals on the 80s albums, excuse me.
Mhm.
Um, I would appreciate it more if it was on one of those other albums. To me, it just sounds completely out
Yeah.
of place on this record. And I think that's my
Mhm.
issue with it because I don't think it's a bad song per se. Um, but I just think it just feels out of place to me on THRAK.
Yeah. I guess we both just feel differently about it. Like I said, it definitely didn't stand out to me at first, but I think now I've actually really liked the track. Maybe upon more listening, maybe if you listen to the back half of this album a little more, it might start to click for you or not. But I really enjoyed that tune. I think it could stand to be a little shorter though.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
almost 6 minutes
I think
long,
that's the other
so
thing
that might be
why I
part of the
just didn't get into
problem.
this one. Like, whereas a song like
Yeah.
Dinosaur, doesn't overstay its welcome at the 6 minute mark. Um, People could have probably been trimmed a
Mm-hmm.
good minute and a half, 2 minutes. But still a decent song, like I said, just
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. A little out of place on THRAK. But let's move on to track
Mm-hmm.
nine, which is Radio One. So out of all the interludes, Radio One and Two, I just think are pointless. I would just remove them from the record altogether.
They're not really, to me, they don't really harm the record, but they also don't really add much to it, so
I
I'm
think
kind
when
of
we were
indifferent
just
towards
talking
both.
about
you
perfect
know?
track list. I'm not track list. I'm sorry, track length.
Yeah.
We were talking about our perfect beat
Mm-hmm.
track listings. And I said that 35 to 45 minutes to me is the ideal album length. This is just like I think combined 2.5 minutes. Those two songs that just could have been removed. Again, they're not anything bad.
Yeah, I agree.
They're just pointless. That's really how I feel about them.
I will say I don't think that the overall the and well maybe we'll talk. I can possibly go um, on about this when we finish up the track listing, but I don't think this album is too long in general though. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't necessarily hurt it because I don't feel like the album is like way too long. It feels like it's just fine to me. It's about an hour long, so it's really not that long. Maybe it could be. I don't know. It doesn't. Nothing seems like it overstays
Okay,
its welcome,
fair
in my
enough.
opinion.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so then that brings us to track 10, which is One Time. This is another one of my favorites off the album. This is just another beautiful Adrian Blue ballad. His vocals are great.
Yes.
We talked about with I think THRAK was the example that we used, where we really on the instrumental side of things hear how great the double trio sound works. I think you also hear
Mm-hmm.
it really well on this song. And this is a ballad piece, but with this song, you hear everyone's contribution to the track throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
This is the
Without a
highlight of the
doubt, it
second half
is.
of the album, if you want
This is
to call it
another
that.
one.
Yeah.
I think the lyrics could be interpreted a couple different ways. And with this one, I actually had to kind of do some reading up because I was a little bit more on the fence of, you know, what the song meant. But I was on a I was on a forum, songmeanings.com, and someone said that he thinks the song is about life is fragile and we never know what hardships we may come to endure in life, and that there may be no reward for our efforts. We're like beggars when it comes to our future plans and their certainty, and our chances of changing what life has in store for us. Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
that's
That's
pretty
pretty
deep.
deep.
But I think that kind of summarizes the song.
Yeah, and the some of the best vocal melody that he's done, in my opinion. I don't know what it is about the vocals in this track, but it's so good. I really really liked. I really just found this track to be probably one of a long. It's tough for me between this one and Walking on Air. They both
Same.
are really really like good light tracks.
Yeah, no, they're both some of the most beautiful KC songs. And I think we
Hmm.
talked about in an early episode that King Crimson ballads are just not discussed enough. I mean, Exiles is one of my all-time favorite King Crimson songs,
Yeah,
and that's a ballad. And I would most certainly put One Time up there as well
that's
too.
people always talk about the dark side of King Crimson, but King Crimson has always been balancing dark and light. I mean, all the way back from the first album, you have lighter tracks like "I Talk to the Wind," or even Epitaph has a light vibe, although dark lyrics. I mean, it's not just about the heavy dark side of it. There are two sides to King Crimson,
Oh, absolutely.
and and the lighter side of particularly tracks like this, like to me, Inner Garden, to Walking on Air, and others. I mean, that's some of their best material as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. So just looking at track 11 and 12,
We could skip
we
them.
can
We pretty
skip those.
much,
I mean, I know
yeah,
for me, my opinion's no different with Radio 2 and
pretty
Inner
much.
Garden 2. I'm sure yours is the same. So that brings us to track 13, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream. Um, it's fine. It's okay.
It was a fun
It's a
track. I
cool,
thought it was kind of
fun,
funky.
upbeat
Yeah.
track. Just not a favorite of mine. Like People in the sense that it's not a song I dislike, I hate. I just it's fine. The only difference is
Hmm.
this one doesn't feel out of place to me like People does. But
Hmm.
like I said, it's a fun track, but not a favorite of mine. Probably when I go to make my own sequencing, probably a track I would not include in mine.
Hmm. I enjoy the track well enough. I'd say it's slightly above average maybe. Like I don't like I actually I think it's kind of growing on me the more I listen to it. But yeah, it's not particularly, I think we would disagree where I think I like People more than Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream.
I
But
think I would like excuse me. I like People of the two. I like People more too. Um,
oh really? Okay, you do.
I
Okay.
do. I think it's the better song, but People to me just feels more out of place on this
Hmm.
record than Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, and Dream.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, all right, so then that brings us to track 14 and track 15. And I purposely put those two together. We have Vroom Vroom and Vroom Vroom Coda. Um, these are cool. I meant to put a playlist of just Vroom, Vroom Vroom, and Vroom Vroom Coda. I haven't done it yet, but I want to do that because just listening to those three tracks together, I'm sure it's just amazing in of itself. But yeah, I mean, I they're both great. Great way to close the record. Vroom Vroom is like a deconstruction, but also a reconstruction at the same time of Vroom. And somehow it manages to get heavier.
Yes, it does. And this is one of the few times where King Crimson ends an album with two instrumentals, and I'm not bothered by it. They're both kind of short, which is probably helps, and
Yes,
they
because
both
especially
and
since
they
we were
don't
just
they don't
complaining
really
about that
noodle. Yeah,
before.
yeah, they don't really noodle. They're solid, like heavy industrial tracks. They kind of. I think the first one kind of expands upon what the first Room does, and then the second one kind of has a light bit at the end, doesn't it? Or no, I'm thinking of never mind. I'm thinking of the next album. I'm sorry, I
Okay.
confused the two tracks. But yeah, they're I think they end the album well, and you start with that heavy sound and go out with it. I think that was a good way to do it.
Absolutely. And I agree with having two instrumentals back to back. For this one, it worked. And I think I go back to the track length again. I think that's part of the reason why
Mm-hmm.
that worked, having two instrumentals back to back. I think these two songs
Mm-hmm.
combined are 10 minutes, whereas we've had other records in the past that the two instrumentals that closed back to back were like 20 minutes. So I think that length, time length has something to do
Yeah.
with it as well too, why it's a little more accessible to the ears. But these are also just great groovy instrumentals. So I think this is a great way to close the record. But I am being weary and mindful of our time. So let's talk about bonus and B sides.
Okay, go for it.
So we're a lot for this one. We have the edited version of Dinosaur. It's on the 40th anniversary edition of THRAK, as well as it was released as a 50th anniversary single. It's just an
Mm-hmm.
edited version. I would recommend listening to the album version. That's just me,
Same.
but it's still cool. But listen to the album version.
Yeah, I listened to the single version, and I like the album version better
Same.
personally.
And then this one I talked about already, but the complete version in Enter Garden also released as a 50th anniversary single. I was listening to David Singleton's commentary about it again today,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just saying that it was a fly on the wall recording in the sense that just the recording button was on, so he just recorded Fripp in blue. Like I said, it's a little, at least to me, it sounds a little more stripped back compared to the final album version. I think
Hmm.
actually this version, I might be wrong, this version might have been on the Vroom EP. But
Huh.
regardless, I like it. I kind of wish this was the version that ended up on the album, but I guess like people in the sense this version might have not fit on THRAK. So I guess I understand why they did what they
Hmm.
did. But this is my preferred version of Intergarden.
I've got more homework to do, so I will definitely listen to that and see what I think. I might listen to all three and see what my opinion is there.
Yes, definitely check out that version. But top three for this one,
Hmm.
Rob.
Top three for me. I'm gonna have to go. I think honestly, I'm gonna have to go. Man, it's kind of tough. I really like all the instrumentals, but I gotta be honest. I think I'd have to go like "Walking on Air," "Dinosaur" one time.
Wow. So same songs for my top three, just slightly different order.
I didn't. I didn't even. That wasn't even in order. Those are just probably the three. I don't know. I think maybe "Walking on Air" is my favorite. Between "One Time" and "Dinosaur," I'm not sure. Maybe "Dinosaur" just because it showcases the heavier side of it. But I don't know. I like "One Time" a lot.
Yeah, no,
You
that's
know.
hard, but mine would be and this would be the order. It's a talk like one and two are close, but I think I'm gonna go with Walking on Air as my number one. Then One Time, and then Dinosaur would be my number three.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think our overall opinions on the album are slightly different though, because um, I really think I think re-listening to this was good for me because I really appreciate the album more. In fact, I think this is probably the album for me, at least thus far, that really my opinions changed on it a lot, and that I really like it.
Same, and I agree. It seems like overall, we both have the same feelings about this album. I might be a little more critical about it than you, but
Hmm.
I think we both mutually really like this one. I do
This
think
this.
it's a little bloated, especially the second half. I mentioned before those first six tracks are just back to back flawless, and then from track seven on, it gets a little bloated for me personally. I also
Hmm.
think, and look, guys, I'm not like an audio like I'm not, you know, I'm not an auteur, if you will, of like audio. But to
Hmm.
me, this record does sound a little muddy compared to other King Crimson albums. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I all in all, I love this album. I wish it was just a tad bit shorter, and I think that's where you and I disagree a little bit. I
Hmm.
do think there's a better album here if we just trimmed off 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. Um,
Yeah, I could see that. I would be good either way
but
personally.
I'm looking to down the road for this one. I decided as we were listening to these three records, I'm going to do my own sequencing for this one, and as I said before, Starless and Bible Black as well. So I'm really interested.
That I will. That I would be very interested in
Yeah,
hearing.
but overall, I really do love this one. I think this is going to end up on the higher side of my final rankings.
Same here. Yeah.
So, all right, so that's THRAK. Let's move on to the construction of light.
Okay. Okay, so we are going to move on to construction of light. Oopsie. There we go. There's construction of light. I just was putting the album cover up.
I was going to say, I don't even know what you were doing, but that still made me chuckle. So, the construction of light, uh, album number 12. It was released in May of 2000 on Virgin Records. Uh,
Hmm.
this was the end of the double trio. So sorry, guys, that was a one off thing. End of the double trio by the release of The Construction of Light. Longtime members Bill Bruford, who debuted on 1973's Lark's Tongues and Aspect, and bassist Tony Levin, who joined in 1981, have also left King Crimson. I knew Bruford left. I didn't know that Tony Levin was not on these last two albums. Just a little.
I didn't know until relatively recently. Yeah, I thought I was kind of surprised by that too.
We are for this one because with THRAK, I was questioning. This one, we are indeed listening to the original mix. We're going to talk more about the remix in a little bit. Um,
Hmm.
just some fun facts about this one. Robert Fripp was unhappy with this album, considering that it doesn't convey the power of the music to a greater extent, this is a Fripp quote, by the way, than any of the King Crimson studio albums. He feels that it hampered by the conditions on which it was made. None of the music was played live before it was recorded, and Pat Mastelotto not using his preferred hybrid acoustic slash electronic kit. It was all electronic, I believe, for this album. Fripp's attention
Mm-hmm.
being focused on writing and playing over the recording and the production. So, and that's what was interesting because that's very typical for King Crimson that a lot of their songs were played live before they became
Mm-hmm.
studio tracks. This was like one of the very few exceptions. And then the
Hmm.
other thing was the King Crimson Projects, which is Proje capital K C T S. Those of you that are,
See what they did there? They put KC in
yes,
there.
which they do that a lot for the tracks on this album.
Yeah.
um, those of you that are not familiar with the projects, that was sort of like a side thing that they did. There were several different incarnations. They were mostly active in between 1997 to 1999, but have performed intermittently since. These earlier projects, up to Project 6, were devoted to instrumental and heavily improvised music. All of them included King Crimson guitarist Robert Fripp, who described their purpose as being research and development. Such a Fripp quote. Research and development for King
Such a.
Crimson. Two later spin-off.
I love how this. I love how this band, like Fripp, does the weirdest. Like, there's so many like, interest. What's the word? Eccentricities. That Fripp kind of puts into King
Mhm.
Crimson, like the fact there's a research and development portion of King Crimson via these projects is just it's just
Yeah.
funny. I don't know. I'm sorry.
um, Also, two later spin-off projects were of a different nature, but both involving former King Crimson members. One of those was actually more
Mm-hmm.
recently, 2011's Scare City of Angels? No, Scare City of Miracles. I'm sorry.
Scarcity of Miracles.
That was
Yep.
actually considered a project.
That was like Fripp, Jacko, Mel Collins, and was that it?
Um,
So it was like
Fripp, Jacko, Mel Collins, Gavin Harrison,
yeah,
I think Tony Levin.
yeah. It included pretty much current members of the band for the
Yeah.
most part.
Anyways,
Anyway, yeah.
band members. Rob, go.
The band members are Robert Fripp on guitar and keyboards, Adrian Belew on guitar and vocals. Trey Gunn is stepping in as the main bass player, also war guitar, and Pat Mastelotto is the sole drummer in production as Bill Bruford and Tony Levin, as previously stated, left the band. So we are down to four
And
guys
then
again.
there were four. So let's get
Yes.
started. So I feel like I've been saying so a lot. Track one. Here we go. You ready? And the
Mm-hmm.
reward for the worst King Crimson song ever goes to Prozac Blues. Come at me. It is the worst King Crimson song.
I actually really like this song. But it's fair because I can see why people don't like
Controversy.
it. So the first time I ever heard this song, I actually watched. I think it's King Crimson live in
Okay.
Japan in 2000, and I was like, and this song played. I'm like, what is this song? And Blue didn't have the vocal effect on it, so I
Maybe
actually
I have to
heard
check
this
that out.
version of the
Okay.
song live without the vocal, like the weird vocal effect on
And
it.
that's
And then when I heard it on the album, I'm like, what is with this? So, but I kind of got used to it because I'm actually quite familiar with this album, believe it or
and
not.
that was my biggest
And
issue with it. I thought that sounded dated in 2000, let alone
yeah,
2019.
and I'm like, and today I was actually thinking, literally today I was listening to the song, and I'm like, what is with this? Like, what were they thinking with this? Like, with having his, I don't know if there's some kind of effect on Blue's voice or something, or what. And I was like, what were they thinking with that? And then I kind of had thought about it, and I can only think of two reasons. Number one, Prozac blues. I wonder if they were going for that deep
I
blues voice
think they
sound.
were, yeah.
But the other thing that I was thinking with it is if you listen to the lyrics, which I actually kind of like. I think it's kind of a funny song. They might be trying to go for like the vibe that the character in the song has, because it's if you listen to the lyrics, they're very dark and kind of like it's obviously about
Hmm.
depression and abusing prescription drugs and stuff, and it's like, oh man, this is probably what a dude sounds like who's like all like hawked up on Prozac and Jack Daniels, you know. So maybe that's why they went with the vocal effect. It doesn't work for a lot of people, I think, but I actually like the song.
Well, you're
I
gonna
don't
have to
know,
send me
but
that.
totally fair.
You're gonna have to send me a link of that live version
Hmm.
because I do want to check that out now. But
I highly recommend that whole concert. By the way,
yeah,
it's awesome,
okay.
amazing.
Definitely send that to
Hmm.
me after we're
Yeah.
done recording. But yeah,
Hmm.
no,
Definitely.
and maybe that will change because there's definitely a good song there, but God, whatever he's doing with the vocals,
I like the riff.
it's just not. It is a good
No,
riff.
that's hey, that's totally fair. It was a little off putting for me when I first heard it, but I've heard this album, believe it or not, a lot, and I actually like the song.
Also, side
So
note: the spelling of this is Proza. Once again, capital K C. Prozac Blues. A couple other tracks are like that as well. But let's move on to track
mhm.
two. And that's the title track, The Construction of Light. And I'm going to tell you because after just getting off of Prozac Blues, like, oh boy, here we go. This is the worst King Crimson album. I know a lot of fans put this on the very bottom. I got to tell
Mhm.
you, I think The Construction of Light is one of their best songs.
I was gonna say top five songs of their this period, top 10
Wow,
overall.
overall, okay.
King Crimson songs. I would say I this song is the reason that I listened back to this. I'm pretty sure the first time I heard this was on that live King Crimson video, and I thought it was amazing. And when you hear the studio version, I love what's going on. Like Blue's vocals almost sound I don't know, for some reason it reminds me of like raindrops. Like there's just different, like I know that's a weird comparison, but the way he's like, pain day, sun, beauty die, like there's some very weird kind of ethereal quality to the lyrics, and it goes so well with the
As
music.
well as the
I love the
instrumentals in
vibe.
the first half. And interesting enough, and what I really
Yes.
appreciate about this album specifically on all
Mm-hmm.
the digital releases, because on the original CD version, a couple of these tracks are broken into pieces, Construction of Light being one of them. I really like that iTunes, Spotify has combined them into one piece. Um, So
Mm-hmm.
the first half of the song is the instrumental build up, I guess you can say, and the second half is when the vocals come in. And yeah, I mean, I love Adrian Belews' vocals on this too. This song to me clearly is about questioning the existence of God. I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, the song
Yeah.
lists all things in the world we usually associate with God, having created, and then questions and that it's really all that impossible that
Mm-hmm.
maybe God didn't create them. I mean, come on. How can you argue that that's not?
These are these are seriously some of his best lyrics, and it's weird because he does it in that kind of odd style where he's just going on about seemingly random things, but there is an overall theme to it, which is really nice. And you're definitely right about the instrumental. It's one of the most instrumentally interesting songs they've done, in my opinion. There's definitely, and it's got kind of an atmospheric quality, and I like like you were talking about how you love the philosophical
Mhm.
side of lyrics in King Crimson, and I agree. Um, and yeah, this is just one of to me one of their best. I really like this
I do
song.
too. And what was it? Oh, and despite just talking about how Fripp wasn't really into this record, you must like this track enough because when I saw them, I just saw King Crimson live a couple weeks ago, and I'm not going to get into that concert too much
Mhm.
because we're saving that for the last episode. But when I saw them live, they played this and they played Lark's Tongues Part 4 as well. So obviously there are some standouts even for the band. This one being one of them.
Of course.
But thank God, especially just coming off of Prozac Blues, that we go to, in my opinion, really, it's one of the worst King Crimson song to, quite frankly, probably one of the best. Um,
It's a weird
Absolutely.
juxtaposition, isn't it?
But let's move on to track three, Into the Frying Pan. Um, this is another one of those songs, kind of like Sex, Eat, Dream, and not so much People, I guess, but just one of those songs I don't really care for. I don't think it's a bad song per se, but it's definitely not a standout. I will say the one thing I do like about this song is I do like the vocal harmonies in the beginning. I think
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's just Adrian Belew, but using different vocal effects. I guess it would have to be because Tony Levin's not on the album, and Tony Levin was pretty much their only backup singer. Um,
Yeah, I think this one is about average for me. This one doesn't blow me away either, but the highlight for me too, actually, I do like you said, the vocals, but the drums actually really pop out on this one. There's some really cool stuff that Pat Masloretto's doing underneath that I really like. I suggest if you listen to this again to really listen to the drums because the drums kind of bring it to about average status for me because he's doing some pretty cool stuff rhythmically, but otherwise, yeah, not necessarily remarkable lyrics and I don't know, it's pretty average, I would say.
yeah, I would agree. Um, so yeah, if nothing more to add on to that song, let's move on then to track four.
Yep.
Fractured. So not fracture, fractured. And
Hmm.
again, we have a FRA, capital KCTURED. And this one is a little just like interesting backstory about this song. This one is I guess you could say, a cousin to the song Fracture, in that they're both amongst some of the most
Hmm.
challenging and complex King Crimson pieces. Interesting enough, though, Fractured initially began as the fifth entry to the Lark's Tongue suite. Um, but as the band was,
Hmm.
writing the song, it was later in the process considered closer to be in the lineage of Fracture, which of course is the final track off Starless and Bible Black. So thus it was renamed to Fractured. Um, I fucking love this song.
Okay, good. I'm glad you agree with me because I actually think I like this better than Fracture. Um, I was confused at first. I'm like, wait a minute, because I didn't know the backstory there. Because I was listening to it, and I'm like, what is I'm like, is this the same song? Like, are they just redoing the song, or is it supposed to be the same thing? And then I realized they call it Fractured. Okay, so they add the ed. So I actually listened to Fracture after this, after I listened to the album, and I have to say, yeah, like maybe it's not right to compare the two because they're two different eras of the band, but this track definitely blows the other one out of the water as far as I'm concerned.
I would agree. And Fracture was one of my favorite songs off Starless and Bible Black,
Yeah.
but I agree. I think I like Fractured better.
Hmm.
There's actually, when we're done talking about this record, there's another version of Fractured that I like even better that I'm going to really just
Hmm.
probably go on a brief, rant about. But this song, holy freaking brutal.
Oh, it's so good, and like
About
there's this they keep coming back to this. I don't know if you call it a riff or a chord progression that is so good. I don't know.
I was just about to talk
It's
about
so
that. So there's
good.
like around like the
Yeah.
525 mark, there's this breakdown.
Yep.
And the guitar just comes in and
It
it's
just
just like
wails.
brutal
Ugh.
in your face.
It's so good. I love it. Yeah. And then it really picks up at the end. And this somehow like I'm gonna look at it right now, really quick. But this I'm pretty sure this is a bit longer of a song, instrumental, but it doesn't overstay its welcome either. It's a little longer, but I still really it holds my interest. Just fine. It doesn't. I just want to see how long it is, so I don't sound like a total idiot. But I know it was one of the longer tracks. Here we go.
It's like
It's 9 minutes
9 minutes, I
long, so it's the
believe.
longest track on the album.
Okay.
And I still don't. Or no, sorry, it isn't. Lark's Tongue's an Aspic Part 4 is. But yeah, it held my interest the whole time. It's a really really fantastic track.
It really is. It's without a doubt a highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But okay, so we both really love this song,
Yeah.
so I think that's our cue to move on to track five, which is "The World's My Oyster Soup Kitchen Floor Wax Museum." Museum. Hey, that's a name.
Yeah.
Yeah, same feeling overall as into Frying Pan. I think it's just okay.
Yeah.
It's my least favorite off the album, but again, I don't think it's a
I thought
bad
Prozac Blues
track.
was.
Oh yeah, see, I'm trying to erase Prozac Blues out of my mind, so I digress.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Prozac Blues, I think I made blatantly clear, is my least favorite. So I take that back. So this one would be my second least favorite then.
Hmm.
But again, I don't like Into the Frying Pan in that aspect. I don't think it's a bad song. I just think it's okay. It's not
Yeah,
really
same.
anything.
I don't
Yeah,
really know what he's
that's
going on about in this song. Like
yeah, no idea.
I'm just kind of like,
And I
eh.
don't care enough to look up the lyrics of some
Yeah,
of the other songs
it
that I
it's
did, if
it's
I'm, being
unremarkable, but
completely
it's not
honest.
unbearable either. You know.
And well said. Well said. I agree. So in that case, let's just move on then to track six, which again, just like the construction of light, this one was on the original CD release, broken into the I think four individual parts,
Hmm.
but it's one piece now, and that is Lark's Tongues and Aspic. I keep saying heck, aspic, part
Hmm.
four. Learn to enunciate, please.
Just think of
Um,
ass and like pick, like an ice pick.
Ass and then
Ass
pick,
pick. Yeah,
picture,
yeah.
pick. There you go. I keep saying pet. Anyways, um, yeah. So this, of course, hence the title, continues the series of instrumental pieces forming a cross-album suite, primarily recalling the motives of Part Two.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I like it. It's good. I think this one's a little too long.
Hmm.
I actually much prefer Fractured and the first half of the construction of light
Yes.
more than Lark's Tongue Part 4.
But I
What do you
think this
think?
one's still pretty good. And there's a couple
I
of.
do too.
You know what really did it for me? I was actually listening to this today. Again, I listened to all three of these today. And I was like, around the middle part, I'm like, I don't know if I'm into this. But the ending, when he starts, all the vocals come
Yes, the
in,
coda.
and
Yep.
he's like talking about all this, like, there's a lot of, like, really, like, dark, kind of like, a lot of, he starts, like, just naming off a bunch of dark subjects and people, and he's talking. What are some of the things he talked about? Is like Hiroshima, and he talks about the Holocaust, and like he mentions Saddam Hussein. He mentions all these dark things, and it really, like, I was like, okay, I'm in now. Like they were starting to lose me in the middle, and then at the end, I'm like, all right, this is cool. That kind
You
of.
just summarized my exact feelings of this
Yeah,
song because I agree. I think the middle could be cut out a little bit. I think
yeah.
this one does overstay its welcome, but I do really like the coda section of this song as well.
Yeah, it really brought it back to me. I was pretty surprised, actually.
Yeah.
And there are
Um,
a couple of hints at some of the previous Lark's Tongues and Aspic. Uh, well, a couple of those other pieces. Like I definitely hear similar, like what was definitely some similar instrumentation to the first one, and I think the third one. I don't know the third one as well,
See, I was
but
gonna say I don't really hear the first one too much. I hear mostly um, motives of the second one,
hmm
but I do hear a little bit of part three as well.
hmm you could
I don't
definitely
really hear part
it
one
definitely
that
fits
much.
into the whole Lark's Tongues and Aspic
Oh, absolutely.
family, I guess you would say. But yeah, it's not. I'd say you're right. It's not as interesting as Fractured or the Construction of Light, but I think I'm gonna listen to that one more, and I think that one's gonna grow on me a little bit, especially with that really cool outro.
Mhm.
That's one of my favorite outros I think I've heard in a song. It's just it really added it added a weight to it for me.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay, so let's move on to track seven, which is the closing track, Heaven and Earth. Just a
Hmm.
little backstory on this song, because we
Hmm.
did talk about the projects.
Hmm.
This actually comes from one of the projects. So there was Project X, I believe it was called, which literally is the same lineup as this lineup on the construction of light, Fripp included. And I haven't listened to the whole Heaven and Earth album, I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably not something I'm ever going to go check out.
There's just too
If I'm
much, you know.
well, it's too much, and if I'm basing it off of this song. So this song to me, this is where we get too prog metal noodly for my taste at least. I would have just taken this off altogether and closed with Lark's Tongues. It's very
Uh,
strange that they ended the album with a song that was off another King Crimson project, and I believe the song is also on that album. I know the album's called Heaven and Earth, um, but I don't know. Just a really strange way to end the record to me.
So I think my opinion with this one is, by the beginning of this song, I agree. When I was listening to Lark's Tongues, I'm like, okay, they like, especially with how Lark's Tongues Part 4 ended. I think they should have ended the album with it. However, I was fatigued at the start of this, but then once it got to the ambient part towards like the late middle part of the song, I really liked that actually, and I thought it was really good. It's just that it's bit. This is definitely misplaced on the album. I think they could actually get rid of one of the more maybe, either Into the Frying Pan, Oyster Soup Kitchen, whatever, or Prozac Blues, and put that in there, and that would have been fine. Because I kind of like the outro of the song a lot, like the ambient kind of light chimey kind of sound that they have at the end. It breaks it up a little bit. So that's my opinion on that track anyway. I think it's misplaced. It's definitely a bit much after part 4, but I still liked it.
I think maybe it would have been cool to end with just the ambient section of the song. Because I
Yes.
do agree. I do like that part of the song.
Yeah.
It's really like the more prog metal, which is the majority of the song. I just not my cup of tea
Well, that's
these days,
fair.
at least. Um, all right, so that's Construction of Light. Before we move on, let's talk about bonus and B sides, which really at this point it's bonus songs. There's no such thing as B sides in this point of the band's career. And there's a couple. So we have a live version of the Construction of Light, which I'll be honest with you, I have not listened to. So I will check that out. But I just didn't get around to listening to the live version. That's on Spotify. There's also, watch me try to pronounce this, Mastalotolakis SS Blastakis. It's an improv piece. It's from the Eyes Wide Open DVD. This is, of course, the audio version of that. I haven't listened to it, so I couldn't give you an opinion on it, but just wanted to mention that that's a bonus track that's on the Spotify version of The Construction of Light. This I do want to talk about, though. Um, this was released as a 50th anniversary single, but also there's a new remix of The Construction of Light called The Reconstruction of Light. And we've been talking about all these 40th anniversary re-releases of the King Crimson albums. This is the one I'm going to invest in first. I listened to the fractured version of the Reconstruction of Light, but it's also 50th anniversary single, so you can check it out on Spotify. But this is off of the Reconstruction of Light. And just to give a little bit of background, basically this new remix is Pat Mastelotto re-recording his drum parts with an acoustic set as opposed to the electronic set.
Oh, that would be really good to
If
hear.
you thought the Construction of Light version kicked ass, this version is even better.
I gotta listen to it.
Holy
Yeah.
shit. I was listening to this earlier today, and
I really feel
God.
like I fumbled the ball here with not listening to this 50th anniversary remasters because yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of really good stuff. So
This one was just
damn.
recently released. And guys,
Yeah.
just like a little side note, like if you haven't been keeping up with these 50th anniversary singles that David Singleton has been releasing on all digital platforms every Friday, you're missing out because there are just some
Yeah.
really some of it's like unnecessary, but most of the stuff are just like these rare gems
Oh
that you
yeah.
really wouldn't hear anywhere else unless if you have the money to spend on all these crazy KC box sets. But this version of Fractured, I am going to invest on the Reconstruction of Light. I dude, your homework assignment as soon as we're done recording is listen to this version of Fractured.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do
Holy,
that as soon as we get done. I'll probably listen to that
it's
version.
so good. The mix is just better. Hearing, the acoustic drums as opposed to electronic drums, it's even heavier somehow. And I just,
Cool.
you need to check it out. It's
I definitely will.
so good.
I definitely will.
And then the other song is also the Construction of Light. This was, I guess, initially a previously unreleased version, but it was also
Hmm.
released as a 50th anniversary single. And it's labeled as the complete version. And by complete version, it's just another added line. And the line is the man might improvise the construction of light. It's worth checking out. It's the same song, just with that added line.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not sure why they chose to not include that line on the album version, because I
Hmm.
think that just fits with the song, but it's still worth checking out. Like I said, it's not really adding anything new to the song. It's the same song, it's not a remix.
Hmm.
Um, just with that one line that I guess they initially chose to not include on the album version. But final thoughts.
My final thoughts on this album. I think. Okay, so I overall like this album a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some. I think here's the thing. There's a few tracks that are kind of misses, and maybe for some people some big misses. But there's some really good stuff on here too. So it's kind of like it's a weird album. It it's interesting the placement of it that it's the middle album because it kind of reminds me in some way, and because of Fractured, it reminds me of Starless and Bible Black because it's kind of and without spoiling too much, the it's kind of wedged between two better albums, and in my opinion anyway, and I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it. If I were to give it out of 10, I give it like a 6 out of 10, I think. But there's certain tracks here that like particularly Fractured in the Construction of Light that are some of King Crimson's best stuff.
So
I mean,
that's the thing, and like the highs on
yeah,
this one
are
are
high,
high.
yeah.
They
Yeah, they
really
really
are.
are, yeah.
Um, Look, this was without a doubt the hardest King Crimson album for me, at least, to listen to. I
Mhm.
totally understand why this is regarded as the bottom, the least favorite for most fans. But I think this record has a lot of potential. Like I
Mhm.
said, I really want to check out the Reconstruction of Light version.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it's as bad as other people place it.
No, I don't either.
Between this episode and our final episode, I plan on doing one more run through with the whole discography. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think I would put this one on the bottom, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think I would put this. I don't think it would be. It's certainly there's a couple of albums I'll say at least that are below this.
But I would not recommend this one first. This would be like this
No.
would still be one of the last King Crimson albums I would recommend.
Yeah,
But
this you don't want to start with this album, that's for
no,
sure.
no, no, no. But
But
there's
it's
potential
got
here.
that's the thing. This song and or this album, and again, I'm sorry to keep comparing it to the album, but can you see what I'm saying with the similarities between this and Starless and Bible Black? I think this has the highs on this album are more stand out to me more than stuff like on Starless and Bible Black.
Okay.
And the reason I picked that album is just because again it has some really high points and some low points, so I think it's comparable. But yeah, this is the stuff that I like on this I just really really love.
I think the
So
comparisons with this one and Starless and Bible Black are definitely understandable. I think where we do
mhm.
disagree is and I've expressed my love for that album. I would still put that one higher than this one, but I think
Yeah,
this is a good album too. I'm not, I was really surprised. Um,
I think it's underrated for
Totally,
sure.
it's
And
totally
like you said, it
underrated.
has a lot of potential, and I would also definitely be into the Reconstruction of Light to see what happens or like see how that sounds.
Definitely. So let's move on to the Power to Believe. But
We
before
are
we
going
do
to
that,
move on to the Power to Bleed, but first we're going to take a little potty
yeah,
break.
thank you. You took the words right out of my mouth. All right, so let's move on to the power. I almost had the power to believe, the power to believe Oh boy. All right, The Power to Believe. So, Power to Believe is the 13th and to date last studio album by King Crimson. It was released on March 4th, 2003 through Sanctuary Records. The Power to Believe was preceded by the companion studio EPs, Level 5 and Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With. Both of those featured alternate and otherwise unreleased tracks, as well as early live versions of songs from that era. And I'll be honest, just like THRAK Attack and the Vroom EP, I have not listened to either one of these EPs. Eventually, I do plan on it, but for the sake of this episode, I did not listen to those prior.
I have not either.
Um, you haven't? I didn't think so. And after a tour with Tool, the band Tool in 2001, King Crimson refined and focused their four-piece structure for their second album in that configuration. So, of course, the band members, which you'll still say are the same band members from the construction of Light.
And this album actually, I'm looking now, charted really well compared to the last several albums. Like, it did like 162 in the UK, 150 in the US, but randomly it got to number 18 in Poland and number 45 in Italy and a couple other ones. Oh, it hit number 25 in Finland randomly. Like, this album actually charted pretty well. I wonder if it's because of that Tool tour, possibly, if that gave them a boost or whatever. But yeah,
that had to have been it.
Yeah, it charted pretty well for the most part.
I mean, this was around the time 2001 Tool was Lateralis. It just came out. Like Tool was at Schism was a really big single. This was like Tool at their popularity peak. So I can't help but wonder if that.
Yeah, I'm sure it had some kind of effect on it. But as for the band members, we have Robert Fripp on guitar, mastering and production, Adrian Belew. Well, it's actually, I don't really need to go through it because it's the same band members as the last album. Robert Fripp, Adrian Belew, Pat Mastelotto, and Trey Gunn.
And Trey Gunn. And this was the last one with Trey Gunn.
Yep.
By the way. All right, so let's dive into the track listing. Track 1, The Power to Believe 1, a cappella. Acapella, thank you. I should have known that. Studying music and whatnot back in the day. But I just made a fool of myself, so let's move on from that.
Hey, it's all good.
Guys, by the way, I am a teacher, despite having the
they gave this man
apparent pronunciation problem that I have. But anyways, so this is kind of like a cool ambient piece that stems throughout the album. Fun fact about this song, this specifically stems from an Adrian Belew song called All Her Love Is Mine. He recycles the line, she carries me through days of apathy, she washes over me, she saved my life in a manner of speaking, which is a line from The Power to Believe, but it's recycled from this one Adrian Belew song. I forgot the line when she gave me back the power to believe. He did this to give these ambient pieces throughout the record sort of a sense of coherence, since they are, of course, spread out. And where I was very vocal about the distorted vocals off the last record, sort of the more robotic-esque vocals, I actually really like on this song.
Yeah, they suit it well for some reason. This track's very short and just kind of like a little opener, but it does give a vibe. It kind of like sets the stage for the album very well, I think.
Yeah, totally. Not much more to really say about that one. So let's move on to track 2, and that is Level 5. A little background about this song. This is actually Lark's Tongues Part 5. And I got to tell you, I love this one. I think it's the best Lark's piece since Part 2.
I agree. Yeah, it's one of my favorite King Crimson instrumentals, and it's right up there. It's got that kind of red vibe. It's really dark. When I saw them live, they played this, and I was just really into it.
See, this one they didn't play when I saw them.
I really love the part where it breaks down and it gets that rhythmic section where it's like bam, 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 and there's like it's kind of like it's weird. It's almost like they're going out of sync but in sync at the same time. It's weird. It's a really really cool track. Very dark.
I agree, and I would say this is like in terms of heaviness, it's like on par with THRAK. Whereas
Oh
we
yeah.
mentioned that THRAK was like probably their heaviest song to date. Level Five might give it a run for its money.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
yeah. I was listening to David Singleton's commentary because Level Five was released as a 50th anniversary single.
Hmm.
So not to get ahead of ourselves, but it was a live version. And he was saying originally why this one was called Level Five as opposed to Lark's Tongues Five was to sort of separate the expectation so fans weren't initially comparing it to the other Lark's
Hmm.
pieces. I guess if you do look at track listings from recent King Crimson live albums, as well as set lists, it is now labeled as Lark's Tongues in Aspect Part 5. But they did initially name it Level 5 for that reason to sort of just drift away from those, initial comparisons, which I know, I would do. So
Yeah, no, it was probably a smart idea. It didn't put more pressure on them to make it sound a certain way.
yeah, totally. Um, Anything else to add to Level Five?
It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. I just love it. I think it's classic. It's that classic King Crimson sound, very industrial sounding, very dark sounding, menacing,
Yeah, I,
heavy. You know.
I would agree, and it's one of those KC instrumentals where what I love about it again is it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's perfect track length in my opinion.
Yep.
So speaking of Level Five, and in some ways the next track, Eyes Wide Open. We talked about, you just mentioned the industrial sound. To
Hmm.
me, this is where they finally sort of perfected that industrial influence in that it doesn't, it felt a little forced
Hmm.
on THRAK, certain parts of THRAK, and really on certain parts of the construction of light. I think it's used more naturally on this album out of the
Hmm.
three. But even a song like Eyes Wide Open, and even though that's a ballad, it still incorporates like this ambient industrial sound throughout the track. This is a really pretty ballad. I like this song a lot.
I really like Eyes Wide Open too. I like the vocals a lot. And there's some very interesting things going on instrumentally in this track. Like you said, it definitely incorporates that industrial sound very well into a more ballady type sound, which is really interesting. And there's some really good, like, airy kind of guitar, and I guess it's keyboard work. Let's see, what is it? It might be more of his some more of that like Fripper-tronic type of thing that Fripp
Mm-hmm.
does. But there's some really really good stuff going on there in that track. There's some really like kind of atmospherical little touches that I really appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think the vocals are great too.
Mm-hmm.
I've really been digging these later King Crimson, Adrian Belew acoustic pieces.
Mm-hmm.
This one's more in the vein of like One Time and Walking on Air. So I think that's why I was initially drawn to this track. But let's move on to track four, Electric. And I love this song. This is another this is another killer
This is
instrumental.
one of their best instrumentals from this period. I think it's. I think the name is very appropriate for it. Electric. It makes it. It almost sounds um, like an electrical current or something. It's weird.
It's interesting because when you first listen to the song, the beginning and the end of the song sounds like it could be a song that wouldn't be, too far off on appearing on an album like Lark's Tongues. But then
Yes.
immediately it goes into that heavy industrial sound, and you're like,
Oh,
oh,
it's
nope,
so
just
good.
kidding. Just kidding. Um, but I love it. This, I think, no, that's a lie. There's another song. I was going to say Electric might be my favorite instrumental, but there's one other one um, that I might have to give over this one. But this is still a great track.
Oh, and again, this does not overstay its welcome. at all. It's very digestible. It's about 8 minutes long, but it doesn't bore me anyway at any point. I think, which I have to say about
Yeah,
all the
I would
instrumentals on this
agree.
album. Hmm.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I said I would say that about all the instrumentals on this album. Not
On
to
this
like.
one in particular, absolutely. And this is definitely not a long 8 minutes. I think this is one that it's
Hmm.
the length is perfect. I want to change anything about it. Just a great song. Um, yeah. Oh God, the instrumentals are great on this one.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
Um,
And they transition. They make the
Sorry, I'm
transition
misclicking and
from
stuff.
the songs with the vocals on, like with like the vocal heavy songs. Well, it makes the,
Hmm.
the transition really well between the instrumentals, which is what I like. I kind of wish they had done it on other albums.
Yeah, yeah. But that's that's what's so cool about a band like this, and that's
Hmm.
they've been around for so long that even they've like they haven't perfected their craft. They're still learning new things.
They are truly a progressive band.
True, yeah, in the truest sense for sure. Um, so track five, which track five really isn't really worth talking about because it's
I
really
think five and
serves
six are essentially should be just one track.
right. It serves as an intro, Facts of Life intro, hence intro, which goes into the song Facts of Life, which is track six.
Hmm.
And this is my least favorite off the album. It kind of, in some ways, reminds me of Prozac Blues, only not
Hmm.
as bad. It just sounds like cringeworthy new metal. I fucking hate new metal. That's just what I hear in this
I
songs.
did see. I don't hear that. I actually really like this tune, so this is probably
Uh-huh.
where we're gonna defer. I really like the lyrics a lot, because it's very much they're kind of cynical lyrics in a way, and like stuff like none of them give back whatever as much as they take. 6 billion ants crawling on a plate. Obviously using the ants as a metaphor for humans just consuming too much and not giving enough back to the planet. And it references things like nobody knows what happens when you die. I like the cynical kind of hard look at reality within the lyrics, and there's just I also like his gruffer
Yeah,
vocals.
now you have
He
me
actually
pulling up the
Adrian Bluth
lyrics.
really, huh?
No, I was just saying now that you have me pulling up the lyrics because I do recall liking the lyrics to this song, but
Uh huh.
uh, I don't know, just the vocal approach to this one. It just reminds me of
I
new
like his
metal.
vocals too. Like they're kind of growly, which is weird for
There you go.
him. They're kind
Facts
of
of
like
life.
more aggressive vocal style for him. And I don't know. There's also just this one
Oh
part with
yeah,
the
yeah.
where the guitar solo comes in.
But anyways, the lyrics to the song. Yeah, no, this is I do like the lyrics too. I do remember thinking that when I was listening to it. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't like the approach to it, but that's just me.
I say if you can give this one another shot, it might grow on you after a while.
Oh yeah, I absolutely will. We'll talk about in our last episode. There were a couple songs throughout the band's career that I might have been a little vocal about my feelings.
Hmm.
That some of which I have changed a little bit. So who knows? This could
Cool.
be one of those songs, but as of now, it's not a favorite of mine.
Yeah, that's fair. I like this is probably one of the few examples where we're just very different. I also you should mention this at the end of it. This is probably the album of this period I'm most familiar with and like the most, but I'll get into that later. So
Okay, so then let's move on to track. How's my place here? There we go. Track seven, "The Power to Believe 2, Power Circle." This song is without a doubt the centerpiece of the album. I love
mhm.
that how all the different I guess instrumentation that we hear throughout the record is sort of incorporated really well on this track at once.
Mhm.
The synths, the guitar, the percussion, etc. This is just a super chill, laid back song,
And they
um,
kind of reprise that a cappella from the beginning.
which they do throughout.
Yep.
Like Vroom, this is one I've been meaning to make a playlist and just listen to the four Power to Believe pieces back to back to hear how they would just sound like as a standalone track. But this is one of my favorites.
Yes, I like this one a lot too. It's kind of a cool ambient sort of piece. Again, kind of mixes more of that industrial sound in a lighter setting and creates a cool atmospheric little piece. Again, instrumental that doesn't overstay its welcome and stays interesting. It's not boring at all.
Agreed. Let's move on to track 8, which is my favorite song off the album, and that is Dangerous Curves.
Wow,
Yeah.
favorite.
So what I like about this song is it almost sounds like this like disco prog voyage is really the best way to describe it. This song is just so badass. There's this like around the 5:45 mark of the song, this guitar chord that Fripp just, I'm assuming it's Fripp, just blasts and it's just held for the rest of the song. Um, this song like reminds me of like the Red era meets the Discipline era. Like take a song like Red, Red meets Discipline almost, and that's
it
Dangerous Curves.
and it has that way, kind of like how Starless, but not. I mean, I wouldn't say the song is as good as Starless, but it has that way of building and building.
Yes,
And then there's a big payoff. I think at the end. I think it's really. It's a pretty epic
that
track. Actually.
5:45 mark is the payoff for
Yeah,
sure.
it's pretty great.
And what do you think of this one?
I agree. I don't think it's my favorite, but I really love this one. Like I said, the instrumentals really are, in a lot of ways, the highlights of this album. Like Level 5 is great, Electric's great, Power to Believe, and this just continues that trend as far as I'm concerned. Some of the best Crimson instrumentals, as far as, in my opinion. But this one, yeah, like I said, the slow build is nice. Again, more of that industrial sound. You have that amazing guitar.
Um,
But yeah, otherwise, yeah, overall I really enjoy this track. I would say it's definitely one of the highlights on the album for sure.
Agreed. So let's move on to track 9, which is Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With. And this one's cool in the sense that I really appreciate the different use of technology that's used. In a way, it kind of reminds me of like a 21st century of Elephant Talk in the sense of the lyrics. I had the lyrics pulled up and I think I just X'd them out. Um,
Oh, I know the lyrics pretty well. I like how they basically break the fourth wall, and they're just like, yeah, and so then I'm gonna write a
that's
chorus.
where I'm
We're
getting
gonna
at,
have to
kind of
have a
like Elephant
chorus.
Talk
It's
in
so
that
good.
sense, where it breaks the
Yeah.
fourth wall, like you just said.
It's cool, yeah. It's. I mean, overall, like if you were to look at the song, like if you weren't a King Crimson fan, you're like, what is this? This is stupid. But as a fan, and just like kind of being a music fan in general, you can appreciate somebody actually singing about. It's almost like they were writing the song and they're like, and Adrian Belew was just like, okay, so we don't have lyrics, but this is the song, and it's almost like he was just like, and then we're gonna have to write a chorus, and then Fripp was like, just keep that,
Yeah.
It's almost like they just like went with it.
So while the lyrical side of the song and the technological side of the song I appreciate, just as a song, it's not one of my favorites. I think this might be one that's going to grow on me over time. Um,
Yeah, it took me a while too when I was first listening to this album, but yeah, it kind of it grows on you after a while.
yeah, and I have a feeling that's going to be the case for me. But like I said, there's a lot that the song offers that I really do appreciate. Um, so then that brings us to track 10 and 11 that I think we can just condense, which is The Power to Believe 3, Deception of the Thrush, and then The Power to Believe 4, Coda. And these last two tracks really are just kind of like a continuation slash reprise of the song The Power to Believe, which, as we discussed, is spread throughout. Those robotic vocals return, which I think are beautiful. There's a cool ambient section in The Power to Believe 3 that I like. But I think this is a cool way to close the album. I want to again make a playlist of just these four songs because I'm curious as to what it might sound like as one piece. But what do you think as far as closing this record with these last two tracks?
I think again, don't overstay their welcome at all. You have about 6 or 7 minutes total between the two tracks, so they don't linger too long. Great atmospheric tone to it. See, I like when instrumentals, which I think all of these do, have kind of a vibe and kind of like almost like um, atmosphere, ambience, whatever you want to call it, to them, and they all kind of are very good at like painting a picture, and I think it just ends the album on a high note as far as I'm concerned. It, uh, it again, I usually complain about back-to-back instrumentals, but I can deal with a 4 minute and about a 3 minute song
Mhm.
to end the album with. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's a
I
good.
like them.
It's almost like a good palate
I
cleanser.
Yeah, I agree, and I think you're right that I'd be interested in hearing the four pieces back to back.
So let's before because I just realized we never did our top three tracks for the construction of light. So let's talk about bonus.
Oh
Yeah, so
yeah.
let's talk about bonus songs really quick. Then we'll do our top
Hmm.
three for this one, uh, construction of light, final thoughts on this one, and then we'll rank our top three of this era. Sound good? Okay.
Okay, sounds good to
So with
me.
bonus songs, we have an acoustic version of Eyes Wide Open. It was released as a 50th anniversary single, as well as the Happy What You Want to Be Happy With EP. That one's pretty good. I think I overall like the Power to Believe version better, but it's still worth checking out this just acoustic version of this song. There's also a 40th Power to Believe slash 50th anniversary single edition of Electric, which from what I only listened to it once and it didn't sound like it offered anything new other than just a remastered version. But I'll
Hmm.
have to go back and listen to that again. So there's that. There's also a 50th anniversary. This was released as a 50th anniversary single of Dangerous Curves. I was listening to David Singleton's commentary, and he described it as a reinvented version. I guess it's
Hmm.
based off of the live version from 2001's Level 5 EP, but
Hmm.
I guess reinvented of that version. Um, I haven't listened to that version yet, so that's worth checking
Okay.
out. I know I want to check that
I haven't listened to any of these either, so sorry
And
guys.
then there's also, again, a 50th anniversary version, a live version of Level 5, which was from the Meltdown Live in Mexico. That was a recent live album. And
Hmm.
that's the commentary where David Singleton talks about why they didn't call Level 5 Lark's Tongues Part 5, but why it's now labeled as Lark's Tongues Part 5.
Hmm.
Um, but okay, let's do our top three for the construction of light and then our top three for the power to believe. You go first.
So for me, for construction, it's I have a feeling we're gonna have the same one. I don't know if we're gonna
Yeah,
do the
me
same
too.
order. For me, it's one. One is construction of light, then fractured, then Lark's four.
Um, yes, mine's going to be the same and in that order. My number one's going to be the construction of light, then fractured, specifically that reconstruction of light version, and then
Hmm.
Lark's tongues part four is going to be my third.
Yep. So it's the same, except and who knows? Maybe when I hear the 50th or the reconstruction of light version, I'll also say that's my favorite because it sounds like it's gonna be good.
So tell us your top three for Power to Believe.
My top three for the power to believe, I think I'm gonna have to go with level five. I'm not gonna do this in a specific. Honestly, you know what? I honestly think it's level five, eyes wide open, and electric. I
Ooh.
think maybe I'd put eyes wide open over level five, but then yeah, eyes wide open, level five,
So
electric.
we
I hate to do just like I hate to do just like the beginning tracks there, but God, I love
so while
them.
our top three for construction of light was identical, our top three for Power
Hmm.
to Believe is quite different, except for one song. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, one song. So my number one would be Dangerous Curves. My number two
Hmm.
would be The Power to Believe 2, Power Circle. And then my
Hmm.
number three would be Electric, with level five just making it a number four. But I got to give it to Electric over level five.
Electric's so good. I love it.
So, final thoughts on this one.
This is my favorite of this
Okay.
era. And I have to say I have a history with this album. I've been ever since I was originally into King Crimson, this was an album that stood out to me. I don't know why. I think part of the reason was watching that live in Japan, live video or whatever it was, because most of the tracks are from this. And I don't know. I originally listened to it when I was in Montana and listened to it a bunch when I was driving home, and I just have a lot of nostalgia for it. But beside my personal feelings, I just think if you look at it, I think this era and the Lark's Starless Red era have a lot in common in the sense that I think that THRAK really started to kind of establish the sound that they're going for, and what maybe ConstruKction was sort of like the more experimental, trying to find their way, and then I think this was the sound this was the album where they really perfected what they were trying to do. That is my opinion of the whole era, and I think this is the strongest release.
Yeah, I would to mirror that a little bit.
This is the red of this era in my.
Yeah, so this one is without a doubt the most cohesive out of the three.
Yes.
It's almost like the other two in some ways work up to this one. This one, the highlights for me are the instrumentals. Dangerous Curves, Level 5,
Yes.
and what am I missing? Electric are stand high with some of their classic instrumentals. For me, what falls short on this one a little bit are actually the songs with vocals. That's where this one kind of goes down for me a little bit. But listen, if this is going to be the band's, I guess, final hurrah, which seems like more than likely it is, this is definitely a way to end.
Oh yeah, they definitely ended on a high note.
For sure. So before we wrap up this episode, let's do our top three of the era. I'm going to go first this time since you did your top three.
Go for
the last
it.
two. So look, despite being critical that it's a little bloated, I just have to kind of give a shout out of those first 6 tracks as well as One Time. But I'm going to put THRAK as my number one for this era. Still putting it over the Power to Believe, but then of course Power to Believe is going to be my number 2, and the Construction of Light is my number 3.
I think we're just slightly different on this, and mine is Power to Believe, THRAK, then Construction.
Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be your order. I think we're.
And I'm good.
No, I was just going to say, I think we both agree that this last era of the band is pretty solid. I think we both agree that the Construction of Light is by all means not as bad as most fans of the band think. This album definitely feels like a trilogy of sorts in the sense that Discipline, Beat, and Three of a Perfect Pair felt, as well as Lark's, Starless, and Red.
In a sense, it's similar in the fact that it has essentially the same lineup because they just lose two of the members, but 4 of the members are on each of the releases. So I mean, it's the Adrian Belew. We could say like the Adrian Fripp, the Belew, Fripp, Gunn, and Masteletto era. I mean, and then you just have the added bonus of THRAK of having Bill Bruford and Tony Levin.
Yeah.
So who were also technically in this era a little bit more than that if you count all the projects, because I know they were involved in some of that.
They were.
But I want to end with a controversial statement, if you don't mind. This is the most solid era of King Crimson, in my opinion.
Really?
I'm not saying it's my favorite. I just think that of all the other eras, I can think of some pretty low points. I don't think, while Construction of Light has its low points in terms of certain songs, I don't think it's a bad album, and I think it's better than something like Starless and Bible Black, or maybe definitely something like In the Wake of Poseidon, in my opinion. And it's, I think, definitely better than Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair. So as it stands, I would say it might not be my favorite era of King Crimson, but I think it's the most solid of all the eras of King Crimson.
I think I'm going to disagree with that. However, what I do think is admirable about this era, and it's kind of where like your point is getting at is
Mm-hmm.
this era of the band didn't let the pressure of what the music scene of the 90s and the 2000s were like. This era of the
No.
band is no exception in the sense that they continued to push boundaries. They continue to try new things. Sure, there's influence of what was popular of that era,
Mm-hmm.
but they also didn't let that be a pressure point for them as well too. Where you can make the case that they
Mm-hmm.
might have just a little bit with the 80s era.
Yes, I would definitely say that. Yeah, this really harkens back to the like '70s. I think the '70s mindset where they truly just tried to do what they wanted to do and do
Oh,
different. You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? They truly wanted to progress naturally. Whereas the '80s they did a little bit of the previous era. They definitely did a bit of the whole um, kind of bending a little bit towards what was the popular sound at the time. Although they were still vastly different than almost any other band of that time. I'm not saying that they sold out or anything, but they definitely bent a little bit towards where the trends in music were going to. And of course, you could also make the argument that maybe they didn't bend and just with particularly Fripp and Baloo's involvement with guys like Bowie and Eno and the Talking Heads, they could have just been influenced in that direction too. But it definitely just sounds like they're really they're being very true to themselves in this
Absolutely.
era.
So, guys, we apologize that this episode took uh, as long as it did. We were a month and a half in
Mm-hmm.
between episodes. I am really excited
Yes.
to wrap this series up, and not because I'm ready to move on, but
Yep.
because I can't wait for the last episode. We're going to talk about each of our top 20 favorite tracks, as well as put together
Yep.
the ultimate top 20 King Crimson starter kit playlist, and then we're going to rank the albums. But we're hoping to get the last episode out within the next 2 weeks. When we start season
Mm-hmm.
two of the discography series, we do promise that we're going to be on a more consistent schedule. So please stay tuned. Shorter
Shorter episodes,
episodes.
and we're going to expand. We're going to expand. We're going to get on more platforms, which we'll talk about maybe in the next episode on the wrap up episode. But we've definitely talked about kind of different
Yes,
ways
so
of
we are
doing
looking
this.
into being that we've decided that this is going to go more, continue to go more into the podcast format. Um, while we'll continue to post on YouTube, we are looking into a program right now that's going to make it more accessible for us to
Mm-hmm.
post our podcast on just about any podcast platform. So to make it more convenient for you guys, hoping to expand
Mm-hmm.
on our end of things a little bit. So stay tuned for all that stuff as well as doing other series besides the discography series. But Rob, any final words before we wrap up?
That's it. That's all I got to say. I'm really excited for the to wrap this up and doing our top 20 and ranking all the album stuff. That's the my favorite part of it. So I'm
Same.
stoked for
All right,
that.
guys.
And also, don't forget to check out our both of our playlists of the perfect beat and see what you
Yes,
think of it
in the
in the
description
description
below. But
below.
until next time, we will see ya. Peace, guys.
Peace, guys. Also, it's in the description below.
Blue. Bye
Like
bye.
Adrian Blue. Bye, guys. That's so bad.